Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey there everyone, welcome back to IbraCorp. Thanks for coming back and checking out the new video. Since the last video, I have realized that the microphone was very quiet, so thanks to my brother who has lent me his Yeti microphone, hopefully this should be a lot better. So today we're looking at installing Discourse onto Unraid as a VM, as a virtual machine. Now Discourse is quite a nice community platform, and you've probably already used it on particular websites. You'll notice its distinct sort of appearance and layout, and a lot of different organizations use it, of course, so you'll see it sort of all over the place. So I'm on their main website now, and you can already see some of their examples of live, sites using Discourse. You've got mail functionality built into it, and not as a separate program that you have to manage again. So it gives you a couple of different things there, and this is their main website, discourse.org. I'm basically just going through here. You can see all the different integrations, which is even more integrations. But if you use Slack as a messaging service, if you have a WordPress site, a lot of people, especially those creating blog pages, tend to use WordPress. So as an integration to WordPress, that's really good. And it basically means you don't have to try and get for example, a WordPress plugin to do that, which might cost you money, because this is a free and open source product. Which is the reason why we're making a video here at IbraCorp, and why we want to use it ourselves, because we are big advocates of open source free applications that the community can really get involved with and takes privacy seriously. So that's a good thing from us here. We've got the instructions here, and all these links I'll put down in the description. So this is the install instructions for a production environment, I should add. There is different installation instructions depending on what your end goal is. So I highly recommend you go to the main Discourse page. You can go down here, a couple of examples they've got. Very responsive, so useful for mobile access as well, which is great. Now you have different operating system procedures here and options, so it really depends what you prefer. But in today's video, we're going to be installing on Ubuntu, and there's a couple of other things that get set up as well. Here's the requirements, what it's built with, how you can contribute, and of course some other information there, where it basically mentions all our code is 100% open source and peer reviewed. That's fantastic. Any application that advocates this sort of stance should be really encouraged, and we all get it. These companies make a lot of money, big corporations, they privatize their stuff, it's their intellectual work. Totally get it. But as a consumer, you're asking me to purchase the product, I should know what is in the product. If we didn't know what was in our food, that's why they ended up making stickers, so that everybody can read the sticker and you can see what is in the food you're about to put in your body. So what's the difference if it's coming through your mouth or it's coming through your eyes when you're using a product and into your brain? It all ends up in the brain anyway. Anyway, we're getting on to a bit of a rant here, but free and open source, that's fantastic. And here we are in our Unraid server. So currently I'm on Unraid 6.9.0, release candidate 2. Now, when you go into VMs, you see we've got some VMs already running. So we're just going to say add VM. And we want a Ubuntu. Description, I usually like to put the version of the operating system that I'm putting in there. Now the reason why is because it can be a little bit of a pain if you forget. It's not, a long process to get it, but you have to start it up, and instead of doing that, if we just put it in the description, we can know straight away at a quick glance, alright, this is what this is running. And it just makes it easy to identify. Another option also is if you're setting a static IP address, which I recommend you do, especially for virtual machines. I just feel like you have a little bit more control, and you can basically say for sure that it's meant to be at this address. It just helps you diagnosing a little bit better. Saves that extra couple of minutes where you're checking DHCP to see what you're assigned. So if we come down here, we've got our CPU options. Give it the middle cores. Actually, I use the middle quite a bit. I might. Let it run like that. For the RAM, we have plenty of RAM in this server. We've got 48 gig total. So, nevertheless, as you can see in the instructions here, these are the instructions. We'll have to swap between them. Current supported release. At a minimum 64-bit Linux OS. So, I mean, these are pretty similar for any other Linux OS that you want to install it on. But just be mindful, these are the sort of requirements that they're spelling out. Default of 1 gig of RAM. And they recommend at least 2 for larger communities. Now, because I can spare it, I'm going to give it 4. And that just means that later on I don't have to go back and give it more if I find that it's choking. It's got plenty of sort of buffer room. Now I've already got an ISO to install it with. And disk space. It might be a bit big. Give it 30 gigabytes. So that's how you write it in there for Unraid. Come down here. So with the bridge, I like it bridged straight out. So that should pretty much be it, I believe. So here's the install for Ubuntu Server. We just want English. So here we are. We're going to edit this IPv4 address. Set it to manual. Now our subnet, it's really important that we get this part right, because for a while there, subnet actually confused me the first time I went to install a Ubuntu or Linux operating system. Trust me, it confused me for a while because I was trying to put a 255, 255, etc., etc. as the subnet, and it wasn't accepting it. And well, we finally got it in the end. So I'm giving it a 130 address. I know that one should be free. It hasn't given us any sort of errors. You know, if you change this, you'll see here that it's telling you that doesn't make any sense. So if you're not getting anything like that as you tab through, it will only show you once you tab, and that looks all good. Name servers, I always like to assign particular name servers. For me, I use the Cloudflare ones. I'm a big advocate of Cloudflare. Not sponsored by them or anything, I just really like their products. Search domains, we're not going to bother with that. Save. And it's got its IP address, it looks like, so let's click done. We don't have a proxy, but if you do, this is where you would put the proxy address in so that you can get through the proxy. We're happy with the default mirrors. I'm in Australia, so it's got the AU ones there. Use entire disk. OpenSSH server, we do want this on, so we're going to check that. We don't want to input an identity though, so don't worry about that. Now, I have tried using these options in here to install things. Sometimes they work pretty well, Other times I've had a little bit of drama, so I prefer to actually install those manually later if I need them. And installs really quick, as you can tell. It's already pretty much, done. But it's just going to perform an update now, which is what we want it to do. Let it do its update, and then we can come back to it. We'll just walk you through what the networking is going to look like with NGINX Proxy Manager. I cannot recommend this application enough. Prior to this, I was using Let's Encrypt, which is a fantastic application, even though I am using them all as Dockers, which makes it even better. I just could not spend the time modifying files all the time for every little change that I made, and going to have to go into those files, change them, save them, reload everything, and hope that it doesn't break, and I don't have to read the logs, and it was just a long process. And I found it took me a while. I kept eyeing off NGINX Proxy Manager, and I thought, that looks quite interesting, but I'm kind of comfortable. I don't really want to change now. And then one day I decided, why not? I'll just give it a try. And I'm very, very impressed. Now the OS is done, so we're just going to reboot it now. Now the server's up and it's running, but I don't really like VNC, to be quite honest with you. I prefer using PuTTY. So here we are. Record. Put in our password, and here we are. So we were in the server now. So what I want to do first is just double check that everything got updated before I start. So we do a sudo apt-get update, and it came back pretty quick, so that usually means that there's nothing there, but we can see that some items have been downloaded but not upgraded yet, and we're going to give it permission to do it. Now, it's worth noting, I probably didn't mention this before, but the instructions here are for a cloud server, and I say that in quotation marks. While that's going on, just quickly reboot. We'll quick restart session. Now, what we'll have to do first is change the name. Now, as you saw before, in the install menu, it doesn't let you actually do that. You have to give it just an individual name. You can't put any special characters, which means you can't label it with a fully qualified domain name. Now, there might be a way to do it. I'm not advanced with Linux, so I'm not too sure, but I found a way to do it more direct and make sure that it saves. So, we've set our host name. We've set our static IPs, everything is ready to go, and we can start with the rest of the instructions. So let's go down here. This is basically telling us to SSH, which is we've already done anyway, and we want to get to here. This installation will use Docker. If you don't know what Docker is, it is just a way to run multiple or single applications in a closed off environment that you can quickly start and destroy and keep persistent data as well. There's a lot about it, so I highly recommend you read up on it if you're interested. We'll be doing a video on it in future. So here we go. We're about to start. So sudo s basically put us as the super user or root user. Git clone https. Now, you could sit there and type all this out, but the reason we are even using PuTTY is so that we can just do that. And it's running. And it's done. So that part is finished. It has copied it into where it needs to be. So we are going to have to install Docker, of course. So we install Docker first. It hasn't been installed up on this system before. So we will just be running these commands as explained in the Docker instructions. We're okay, we're happy with that. I'm going to verify the fingerprint is ending with the same information, so that looks good. So you can see the different versions that we've got here, and it'll tell you what is compatible basically with the system that you want to install it on. Just take this command. As you can see here. Apologies if you're watching at night. So we've got the command there that we need, and it wants the version string. And the version string is this part up here, up until the end of this sentence. And so for us, that would be just over here. Alrighty. So we can put that in there. Then come in, backtrack, get it in there and run. Okay, so we have installed it and we've run the docker run hello world. So then we can just have a look here and docker ps. What containers have we got? None running at the moment. We don't need to upgrade it, that's fine. So that already exists, that's fine. Thank you very much. We will just change to its directory. And we're going to start the installation process. So this is the setup instructions now. So I've basically just typed /discourse -setup, and it starts taking us through this. So we're going to say what our fully qualified domain name is going to be, which is community.ibracorp.io. Email address, that's fine. We have our support one. Oh, this is for the admin account actually, so we will put that one in instead. SMTP server address we do have. We're going to use, we use a Gmail setup, so we're going to use that. We're just going to say it's mail, no sorry, smtp.gmail.com. Port is start TLS, which is 587. Username is that. So now we're just waiting for it to install after running. We've confirmed all the settings and we're happy with it. So now it's just going to go ahead and install that for us. So what it's doing here, as you can see, it's creating the YAML. And this is the configuration file. So everything that we've put in as our preferred settings gets written to this file. And that's where you go in to change them later, if you need to change them for any reason. So, and it's just telling you how to do that here. So run the setup again, or edit the file manually. So that's pretty cool that you can run the setup again and just do it that way. I mean, If you just want to reinstall it, that's a really easy way to just go, yep, I'll just do that. So now it's also installing Redis, which is part of its requirements. And that's the beautiful thing about Docker. I didn't have to remember to go, you know, okay, I need to install Redis. Then I need to install, you know, SQL. Then I need to install this. And I need to make sure they're all running and they're all working. And then I go and install an application that depends on them. Instead, with Docker, it's all in the one container. And it does all that work for me. It says, you want to install Redis. Oh, sorry, you want to install Discourse. Discourse requires Redis, blah, blah, blah. Puts them all in one little container, and then it starts them all up and shuts them all down together as one little unit, isolated from the rest of the operating system. So even though we've started up a whole VM for this, in a future video, I'll be showing you how to use Docker natively on Unraid, because that's, to me, always the preferred way, because why add that extra layer? But just for the sake of, you know, it's a feature of Unraid to also run a VM, so I'm just doing it here. So basically, if you really think about it, it's almost like Inception. The real machine is the host server running Unraid. That is running a virtual machine, and inside the virtual machine, we're running a container. And while that's running, we need to start setting up the networking. So we can leave that for now and start working on our network settings that need to be changed. And it's going to be really important to get them set up and ready. Now in NGINX Proxy Manager, which this part used to take so much time just to get things working. And it really doesn't make any sense. Why? So we can say community.iprecord.io. The IP address. If I had to guess, at this stage it could be port 80 that it uses. We'll just have to wait for it to finish. I'll allow it to have WebSockets. Now we also use the extra feature of NGINX Proxy Manager. You can load certificates straight into it. So with certificates, it allows a complete chain from here, secured all the way to Cloudflare, and then Cloudflare out to everybody else. So that's we use that method instead of using Let's Encrypt certificates, which I think is more secure personally, but you know, you're free to choose what you like. So I've got plenty here. Now if we go to iprecord.io, you can see we're hitting the NGINX address. Okay, so now we're going to see if it is running, which it says that it is, and it's running on port 80. So are we going to have any luck here? You'll notice that we're not getting a timeout or anything, so it's trying to connect, but it doesn't seem that it wants to. We've got our setting here, so community.iprecord.io, and we can see that if we've just, if it's running with a certificate, there you go. The issue that we've come across there is that because Discourse is also installing Let's Encrypt, Let's Encrypt is making it a secure broadcast already. So then on NGINX Proxy Manager, you need to make sure that you are matching that setting to what the native application is running. If it's running non-secure, you would set the scheme to non-secure, but the connection out to the public would still be secure. So we've set that all up and that's working. So we're reaching it from our public address. Now usually I'll recommend you wait till you set all this up, then set up the reverse proxy, just so that the very rare chance that somebody jumps in here while you're trying to work probably wouldn't be too good, locking you out of the account. So let's just go through the setup now. I'll maximize this. Hit register, and wants us to check our email. So it wants us to check our email, that's fine. We've got that over here. And you can see it's been received, but our automatic service desk system, Zamad, which is another open source product, has opened the email, so otherwise it would be unread. So then it wants us to click this link, which is fine. So we'll click here to activate. On our language, we're happy with that. Community's name. We like to just keep stuff. A place for the advancement of technology. Describe a community in a few words. Well, I mean, do we really need to? Probably not. We could just skip that. And how would you describe your community to a stranger on an elevator in about 1 minute? Oh, that's a pretty nice way to put it. Products and services we'll add. So that'll do that. We'll go next. We want it public in our case, but if you want it private, you can change it to private. As it says, you can always switch it to public or private later. That's no problem. How do new users sign up for an account? So really nice granular control there, but we can basically say users must be invited. They can sign up on their own, or they can sign up on their own, but they must be approved by staff. I think that's pretty cool. Now we're going to leave it open because we don't want people jumping in and just have something to say. That's fine. Mail address for the person or group responsible for this community. Now you want to put that as your support, so that if people see it, that's where they will be emailing to. Web page, general contact web page. We don't really have a contact web page, but we do have our main page, and that will do. Click next. Company name, well, obviously it's the same. Governing law, we will just put Australia. City for disputes, and we'll just put Melbourne. And here you go, so you can already start getting into some of the customization side of things, which is great. Now, that looks like a very Plex type theme, which ImpraCorp started from ImpraFlix, which is all, media and Plex based. I'm sure you can customize this further later on, but just as at a quick glance, I think I like these two the most. Let's go with this one. And yeah, of course, there you go. So you can change a lot of the fonts, which is great. I think I like this monster rat one. Let's just go with that. Plus it also sounds pretty funny, I reckon. Okay, so we've picked our logo. It's got here what it recommends. I'm not too fussed about it right now. We just sort of want to go with it. Now for the square logo, we also have a square logo here. We also call it our favicon logo. Go next. And browser icon. That's fine. It's already the same file. And also the same file. So we'll go next. Homepage. We recommend showing the latest topics on your homepage, but you can also show categories, groups of topics on the homepage if you prefer. So, latest topics I think is the best for me, but you might want to put something else like particular categories, etc., etc. So, leave it as the latest topics. That probably just gets the conversation going a little bit better, in my opinion. Emojis, I mean, I don't know if this is really that important, but it's sort of thrust upon you everywhere you go these days. So we'll just leave it with the Twitter ones since they look the cleanest. And this is to invite people. So we're not going to bother with that right now. And we'll say yes, continue. And there you go, we're done. We are done. So if you ever feel like changing these settings, rerun this wizard anytime. Beautiful. So in terms of the back end of things, we don't need to be in there anymore. So thanks to this, we can now just say exit and exit. So here we've just come in fresh, and it's just going to give us a sort of a quick overview on what's going on. Gives the greetings and a message. Have a look. Now it looks really clean, doesn't it? Straight out of the box, we haven't really done anything except pick a couple of settings, and it looks really clean. Let's say that we log out. So to the public, this is what the public see. Okay, not much there, but then they can sign up and they can make themselves a member, and you can set the settings that you want to make them a member and go from there. And this is where you would just basically sit here and start configuring everything the way that you like. But that's operational and it's accessible already now to the outside world. So that pretty much is how to set up both a VM and Discourse on your Unraid server, especially in a home lab setup, which most people probably are in a home lab setup. And if we just have a look, we can see that the VMs are running. Auto start is currently off, so I'll tick that to on because I don't want it to disengage after the host might restart or anything like that. So we'll just tell it to automatically start them up. And if we come back to our dashboard, in the first few minutes I imagine that while things are being set up they might chew up some CPU, but as you can see now it's very stable. If you remember, I assigned these last two cores and one in the middle here, and so they're not really moving much at all. So I know that Discourse is sitting nice and clean at the moment. How that might change later on when you've got a lot more people using it, that's a totally different story, but for now it seems to be running quite well. So that's how I installed a VM. I'm sorry for the bit of a mess around there. Just as usual, just a bit of a network configuration thing that can really hold you up, but we got there in the end and it's running perfectly fine. So look forward to sharing more with you soon. If you like this video, you know the usual sayings. Please throw me a like. Please subscribe if you like what I'm doing. Just getting started, so I look forward to making more. I've already got a bunch of new ideas to get going with, and if you have any suggestions, let me know. I'm happy to do it. Anything related to networking, security, home labs, Unraid, let me know. So thanks very much.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.